Hello, I am Iris. The first time my husband hit me hard enough to leave a bruise, my parents saw it, and they looked away. That silence hurt more than the slap. He leaned back in his chair, beer in hand, and smirked. Well, would you look at that? The polite little family's back. That was the night I realized. Survival was not just about leaving. It was about finally speaking, even if no one wanted to hear. What would you do if the people meant to protect you chose silence instead? Before we continue, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. We share new stories every single day. Hit like, and let us know what city you are watching from in the comments. I heard the knock, and my body stiffened. Not from fear, but from a practiced habit carved into me over time. I was still seated on the couch, a damp towel pressed beneath my left eye, the skin tender, swollen, and angry. I had not cried, not once. Crying makes the pain echo louder in your chest, reverberating until it feels endless. Silence. Silence at least wraps it up tight, keeps it contained. The door opened before I could get up. Elaine and Harvey let themselves in like always. No warning, just the sound of grocery bags rustling, and the familiar scent of fabric softener and soap they had used for decades. I turned slightly to face them. That was all it took. My mother stopped mid-step. Her hand still gripping a plastic grocery bag began to tremble. My father's eyes narrowed, not in shock, but in calculation. He was measuring something, though I could not tell if it was me or the bruise blooming across my cheekbone. No one said a word. Behind me, the low hum of the television filled the air. Something forgettable. A sitcom rerun with canned laughter. It clashed sharply against the thick silence, now sitting in the room like smoke that would not disperse. And then, like clockwork, Dorian emerged from the hallway, shirtless, holding a half-empty beer. He leaned against the doorframe and smirked. Well, would you look at that? The polite little family's back. He did not even bother pretending, did not hide the smugness, the glint of control in his voice. My father gave a stiff nod. My mother averted her eyes. They both walked into the kitchen, placed the grocery bags gently on the counter, like they were staging a photograph for a glossy magazine. I did not move. I did not flinch. And then they walked out. Not a word. The door clicked softly behind them, more like an exhale than a goodbye. The clock ticked loudly after that. Or maybe it just felt that way. Dorian belched behind me and plopped into the recliner like a man who had nothing left to prove. The chair creaked under his weight. I did not turn to look at him. I already knew what I would see. His stomach rising and falling with each slow breath, his eyelids heavy, the smug satisfaction still curling at the corners of his mouth. My fingers touched the bruise again, this time not to soothe, but to remember. The truth is, it had not started today. It never does. 2 hours earlier, I had finally said it out loud. Stop treating me like I am something you bought at a discount store, I snapped. Dorian had been halfway through his beer, standing in the kitchen. He did not even flinch, just looked at me like I was interrupting his show. You done? He asked, voice flat. I am serious. That was all it took. The slap came so fast, I did not even get to flinch. My ear rang. I stumbled, landed hard against the counter edge. The air left my lungs in a single gasp. I blinked up at him. And he apologized just like that. Hand out, voice softened. Babe, come on. You always push. You always got to make it a thing. I do not remember nodding, but I know I did not argue. Back in the living room, the recliner hissed as he shifted his weight, already drifting into a nap like nothing had happened. The beer bottle tipped against his chest, balanced there by habit. The room smelled of cheap hops and whatever cologne he thought still worked. I stood slowly, walked into the bathroom, wiped the blood off my lip with toilet paper, did not even flinch when the paper came back red. I looked in the mirror for a long while. The woman staring back looked tired, but she was not broken. I do not matter to them. I do not matter to him, but I exist, I said aloud. My voice did not shake. I reached for my phone, opened a message thread labeled only with an initial, typed, "I am ready," then deleted it, then typed it again, sent. I did not look for a reply, did not need one. Back in the living room, the sky had darkened. A cold breeze slid under the window pane, making the curtains stir like something was breathing just outside. 30 minutes passed, the kind of 30 minutes where the air thickens and your mind sharpens. And then, click, the front door. Dorian stirred, grunted, did not get up. I rose quietly, walked to the door, and opened it. Maris stood there. No coat, just a thick sweater and jeans. She held a plain black duffel bag in one hand, a brown folder tucked firmly under her arm. Her hair was pulled back, face clean, calm, but her eyes were locked on mine, like we had been waiting for this exact moment our whole lives. She did not say hello, did not smile. She just stepped inside, looked first at me, then at the bruise, then finally at Dorian. I gave the smallest nod. She set the duffel on the floor gently, the folder beside it. No words. I walked to the kitchen. The floor creaked beneath my bare feet. I picked up a small black envelope from the drawer, the kind you save for letters that do not need stamps. Dorian stirred again, muttered something, cracked one eye open. I placed the envelope down beside his beer. He squinted. "What the hell is that thing supposed to be?" he mumbled. I looked at him, really looked. For the first time that entire day, I did not lower my eyes. I did not back down. "Do not worry," I said softly, my voice almost steady. "It is not poison." I paused. "But it might just kill something else inside you." He blinked, confused, reached lazily for the envelope, but missed. I turned, walked down the hallway. The carpet muted my steps. Maris followed silently, the duffel now slung over her shoulder. The door to the bedroom clicked shut behind me, and I let the silence say the rest. I did not slam the bedroom door. I did not even let it click shut. I eased it closed behind me, like I was putting a baby down to sleep. Maris was already unzipping the duffel before I turned around. The room smelled like lemon cleaner and faint fear. Not mine, his. It was still clinging to the walls, even though he had not stepped foot in here in weeks. Maris placed the folder on the bed, right beside a tightly rolled change of clothes, a new toothbrush still in its wrapper, and a black leather-bound notebook with tabs peeking out. I glanced at myself in the mirror above the dresser. The swelling had crept down from my eye, pooling into a dull bruise on my cheekbone. I pressed 2 fingers to it, not to soothe it, but to remind myself it was real. He had done that, and my parents had seen it, seen me, and walked out. Maris pulled out a recorder the size of a lipstick. "Batteries fresh and working," she said quietly. Then she handed me the folder. I sat on the edge of the bed, opened it. Every page was familiar. Every line was something I had lived with in silence. A notarized power of attorney granting me sole control over shared accounts. Screenshots of Dorian's online transfers. My money pulled without consent, funneled into some poker app with cartoon dice. Incident reports I had written but never dared submit. One from January. Another from June. A third from just last week. Each marked with the same red pen Maris kept in her purse. And then, tucked at the back, a lease. A tiny apartment 12 miles south, under her name, but signed by me. "I paid the first 2 months already," Maris said softly. "You do not owe me a single thing. I need you to know that." I did not answer. I did not cry. I just flipped to the last page, then closed the folder and laid it flat on the bed. 2 weeks ago, we had sat at the public library, pretending to browse cookbooks while she whispered, "You do not need this stuff to believe yourself, but the court absolutely does. His lawyer will." I had asked her then why she was doing all this, why she was risking absolutely everything, and she looked at me like I was slow. Because no one else is. Because I believe you, and because I am not leaving you here to rot while they still dare call it a marriage. That night I did not sleep. I just stared at the ceiling. And finally believed something I had not allowed myself to in years. I mattered to someone. Maris tapped her phone. We have got one window. After that, he will be watching every single door, every message, every noise. I nodded. He has already lost control. He just does not know it yet. Her hand disappeared into the side pocket of the duffel and came out holding a flip phone. No apps, no tracking, just numbers and calls. She handed it to me. He finds out, she whispered urgently. He will flip this entire house upside down. My fingers curled around the phone. Then we better move before the couch stops snoring, I said. I meant it half as a joke, but as if on cue. I heard the creak of wood just outside the door, the faint shuffle of feet, and the clink of glass on glass. The recliner had given him up. Then silence, then footsteps. Dorian was moving again. I cracked the door open just enough to hear. The front room was quiet, but I could feel the shift. The stillness before something broke. The envelope I had left next to his beer was probably open by now. I could picture his face as he saw the statement, the red circles Maris had drawn, the numbers that did not lie, the withdrawals, the dates, the little yellow sticky note I had placed at the bottom. You will want a lawyer, not a beer. Maris nodded toward the hallway. Time. We need to go. Before she could say more, we heard it. Heavy steps storming toward the bedroom. But I did not wait. I opened the door myself and stepped into the hall just as he raised his fist to knock. He froze mid-motion, caught off guard. His eyes were wide, pupils sharp. His lips parted like he was about to bark something. But nothing came. I held up my phone. That envelope. That is the beginning, not the end. He blinked, confused, then angry. His hand reached out and grabbed my wrist. Not hard, but firm enough to try to control. It was not fear I saw in him this time. It was panic smeared with guilt. Before I could speak again, Maris stepped out behind me. Her own phone already recording. Let go of her right now, she said flatly. This is already live streaming. Dorian released my wrist like it burned him. He stumbled back a step, eyes darting between us, searching for some footing that no longer existed. I took one step forward, shoulders square, face calm. Smile, Dorian, I said evenly. You are finally on camera now. He did not move, did not speak, did not blink. And that silence, it was louder than the slap. His face twitched when I said it. Not a blink, not a word, just a flicker, like a wire in his brain short-circuited for a split second. Then came the sound. Not a fist this time, but something louder, desperate, scrambling. You set me up, he barked, like a man trying to swat at smoke, realizing too late the fire was already under his feet. You dragged your friend into our marriage. His chest rose and fell too fast. His voice cracked, part rage, part disbelief. You are trying to ruin me completely. I did not move, did not flinch. I just watched. Maris held her phone still, angled slightly to the side, her other hand curled around the strap of her duffel. She did not speak either. No comfort, no warning, just presence. Dorian circled like a caged dog. This is entrapment. You know that, right? You cannot just set someone up and record them like this. His voice had that high, brittle edge now, the kind that came when he felt cornered but thought he could still bluff his way out. He jabbed a finger toward the kitchen. You brought a witness into our home to bait me. I finally spoke, quiet and level. I did not bring a witness. I brought protection for myself. His jaw twitched again. I swear to God, Iris, I will call the cops myself. I will tell them you have lost it completely, that you are violent, unstable, You broke into my email. You have been spying on me. I tilted my head. Good, I said simply. He blinked. What? I walked to the coffee table, calm, unhurried, and picked up the manila envelope I had placed earlier. I handed it to him like a waitress with a bill. I already called them. You will want to be ready when they knock. That is what they are walking into. He pulled the flap open and froze. Inside was a stapled packet, dates, medical notes, photographs, a printed copy of the restraining order request Maris was filing with me at dawn. At the top, emergency petition, domestic safety concern. The silence that followed was not peace, it was weight. The weight of truth hitting a man used to throwing punches and walking away without consequence. He scanned the page. One hand dropped to his side, the other tightened on the paper. For once, he was speechless. I took a slow step back, not out of fear, just to give the scene room to breathe. And in that breath, my mind drifted back. 2 months ago I had started writing down everything. Not because I planned this. I had not. I was just tired of doubting my own memory. There was the morning I woke up with a bruise behind my ear and no recollection of how it got there. So I snapped a photo, uploaded it to a private folder I had created under a fake cloud name, Rivertown Books, just in case. Then there was the night I locked myself in the bathroom, shaking, while Dorian banged on the door. I scribbled down what he had said. Every word. I sent it to Maris without even knowing why. She answered 2 hours later. Keep documenting. I believe you. Those 4 words were heavier than any slap he had ever dealt. Later, I got a nurse friend to notarize the ER visit where I said I had slipped in the garage. She did not ask questions, just hugged me a little longer than usual. And then there were the recordings, quiet ones, like the voicemail he left last week when he had been drinking. No one believes you anyway, Iris. I am the one with a job. I am the one who takes care of things. You are just here. You are nothing. That voice, flat and cruel, was now my safety net. Back in the living room, Dorian tried again. You know what people are going to think? They are going to think you are the one obsessed. You are the unstable one. I will tell everyone you were tracking me. You are paranoid, completely paranoid. I did not answer with words. I opened the recorder app on my phone, turned up the volume, and pressed play. His voice filled the air like smoke seeping under a door. You are so stupid it hurts. You think you matter, but you are property. You are nothing but a burden I am stuck with. Maris did not blink, just stared at him. Expression unreadable. He flinched. His face drained color. He looked smaller, weaker, like a kid caught stealing but still thinking he could blame someone else. The room was quiet except for the low hum of the fridge and the tail end of his own voice echoing from the speaker. Then came the faint flicker of red and blue light through the blinds. Dorian spun toward the window. You did not. You actually called them? I did not look. I did not need to. I walked to the front door slowly. My hand found the doorknob. I paused, breathed in. Then I said, almost kindly, let us see if you still smirk in a mugshot. The knock was not loud, but Dorian's voice behind it broke like glass, panicked, rising with that shrill edge I had heard too many times before. She is setting me up. Do not believe a single word. She has got her friend hiding in the kitchen with a camera. By the time the 2 officers stepped into view, their flashlights flicking across the hallway, Dorian had already backed toward the staircase. Hands lifted high, in a gesture of innocence, so rehearsed I could almost see the cards turning behind his eyes. She ambushed me, he said quickly. She is unstable. She has been acting strange for weeks. She is desperately trying to ruin my entire life. I did not answer. Instead, I stepped aside and gestured toward the kitchen table, where I had neatly arranged the folders, tabbed, dated, signed. The USB Maris handed over landed in the officer's palm with a soft click. You will want to start with the timeline, I said clearly. One of the officers, a younger man with a high and tight haircut and a sharp jaw, Officer Keaton Reese, flipped open the top file. The other, a woman maybe in her 50s, glanced at Maris and then at me. "You did all this yourself?" she asked, almost like it genuinely surprised her. I nodded. "Yes, ma'am, I did." The younger one gave a low whistle as he scrolled through images on the USB. These are time-stamped, yes? And all properly notarized?" My voice stayed level. Dorian, still half-shadowed by the stairs, laughed. It was brittle, hollow. "Wow, this is completely insane. She is staging an entire production." The officer ignored him and kept scrolling. They asked him to sit down. When he did not, the younger one quietly unclipped his radio and muttered a code I did not catch, but it made Dorian's shoulders drop. Slowly he sat. By the time the sun crept over the tree line behind our house, we were in 2 separate cruisers headed for the precinct. I rode with the older officer, her nameplate reading Flint, the leather of the back seat cold through my jeans. At the station, Maris and I were separated. She shot me a quiet look before they led her down another hallway. I was ushered into a pale green interview room with no windows, just a table, 2 chairs, and a camera humming quietly in the corner. Officer Marjorie Flint returned alone and shut the door gently behind her. "You know," she said, pulling out a notepad, "it is rare to see someone come in this prepared." I did not smile. I did not prepare to fight. I prepared to finally be believed. She nodded slowly, eyes studying mine like she was deciding what kind of woman I was. We went through the files. She asked questions. I answered them without tears. I had already cried in every room of that house. I did not have any tears left for the station. Across the hallway I could hear Dorian's voice, loud, aggressive, far too familiar. When Officer Marjorie Flint excused herself, a man in a grey suit entered the room opposite mine. Eldon Price, Dorian's attorney. He had arrived too quickly, which meant he had been on standby, probably sent by Judge Roland Holt, Dorian's father, a retired judge in Forsyth County. The shift in energy was immediate. When Flint came back, her demeanor had cooled. The questions got sharper, less about what had happened, and more about why I had kept it to myself for so long. She tapped the affidavit. "You did not go to the police until today. Why now? Why exactly now?" I did not wait. I said quietly, reaching into the folder for one last document. "I documented, and I warned someone months ago." I slid the affidavit across the table. It was signed by Dr. Miriam Lowry, my therapist, dated 6 months back. In it she noted the risk of escalation, specifically naming Dorian. The last paragraph read, "Client shows reasonable fear for her safety in the marital home. Should incidents escalate, she is encouraged to take legal protection measures immediately." Flint read it twice. Still, she asked the question I had feared the most. "You sure you are not just trying to get ahead in a divorce, property split, maybe custody leverage?" For a second my hands did tremble, but I folded them tight in my lap. I knew what I looked like, calm, dry-eyed, spine too straight, not broken enough to seem real. I answered plainly. If I had waited for things to get worse, someone would have blamed me for not coming sooner. If I come now, they say I am calculating. So I prepared, because I knew no one would ever hand me the benefit of the doubt. She did not respond, just scribbled something down. My mind drifted for a moment to a night 3 months ago in Dr. Lowry's office. The room lit soft and warm, while the world outside felt colder than bone. I had asked her, almost whispered, "If I leave, and no one helps, and he kills me anyway, will they say I was crazy for staying?" She had put her pen down, then looked at me. "Then do not leave in a way they can forget." That night I started planning, not to punish Dorian, but to make sure I lived. Back in the room, Officer Flint rose and said she would be back in a few. I waited, counted the slow tick of the wall clock. When she returned, she exhaled first. An audible sigh, like she did not want to say what came next. "We are holding him for 24 hours, she said. "After that, it gets much more complicated." I nodded. She handed me a clipboard with my restraining order documents. I signed without hesitation. No ceremony, no relief, just steps, one after another. Outside, the sky had turned a washed-out grey-blue. The morning chill bit at my skin, but I did not shiver. Maurice met me at the bottom of the station steps. Her eyes searched mine. "Did they actually listen to you?" I nodded, then turned toward the lot where my car was parked. That, I whispered to myself as I slid into the driver's seat, was the easy part, because the hard part was telling my mother what happened and hearing her say nothing. The silence in the car ride back to the rental was thicker than anything the police station had offered. Not heavy like fear, just weighted, like the air around us was tired too. Maris parked along the curb outside the modest unit I had rented on short notice. The kind of place you do not plan to stay in long. Thin walls, beige everything. The kind of kitchen that made you reach instinctively for takeout menus without even bothering to open the fridge. I turned the key. The door clicked, and that sound, so small, so ordinary, was the first real breath I had taken all day. We stepped inside. Maris helped me carry the last of the bags in. Neither of us said much. She had stayed beside me since dawn, through the report, the endless processing, the emotionless bureaucracy of it all. Now here we were, two women in a room full of someone else's furniture, shadows of strangers still clinging to the curtains. She unfolded the spare blanket on the worn-out couch. "You want me to stay tonight?" I shook my head. "I need to do this one thing completely alone." She nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. Maybe she knew this part was not about safety or comfort, but about something else. Something I had to face with my own voice. After she left, I stood in the middle of that apartment unsure of what to do with my hands. They felt like they were still holding something. Maybe fear, maybe memory, maybe both. I sat down at the little kitchen table, the kind with plastic veneer peeling at the edges. I reached for my phone. Have you ever shared the hardest truth with someone you loved, only to hear silence instead of support? If yes, type 1 in the comments to let others know they are not alone in that pain. My thumb hovered over her name. Mom. It was always just saved as that. Not mother, not Elaine, not home. Just Mom. I tapped it. It rang. And my heart did not race the way it used to when I was in trouble as a kid. It did not pound like when Dorian used to yell. It just ached, a deep, hollow kind of yearning that had lived in me for decades. She picked up. Iris. Her voice was careful, not worried, not warm, just level. "I just wanted you to know," I said slowly. "He has been arrested." Pause. "For what?" I swallowed. "For what he has done to me." She did not say anything. I kept going. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to hear myself say it out loud to someone who knew me before I ever knew fear. The bruises, the hospital visits, the money he took, the screaming. I thought maybe you saw something. I thought maybe you would come back. Another long pause. Then, "Marriage is not perfect, Iris, but airing your laundry like this, we raised you stronger than that." My fingers tightened around the edge of the table. That was it. That was her answer. I did not cry. I did not yell. I did not even feel the sting in my chest until several seconds later, because that was the moment I realized I had been carrying the wrong hope. I set the phone down, did not hang up, just let it sit there on the table. Her voice still humming in the background, then fading, then gone. I opened my journal, the one Maris had given me months ago, back when she first started noticing the quiet lingering in my eyes. I wrote slowly, "Today, I buried the last illusion. I do not need her to understand. I just need to stop needing her." I closed the journal. Across the room, my envelope. The envelope peeked out from my purse, the one I had carried into the precinct, full of records, photos, statements, the one I never thought I would ever use. I pulled out a clean folder from the drawer and slid the envelope inside. Then I labeled it in black marker. Closure. The sun had dipped by now. Shadows crept long across the carpet, the kind of light that makes everything look quieter than it truly feels. I made tea. Something warm to hold, not even to drink. I sat back on the couch, letting the steam rise and curl into the air. My body still remembered where every bruise had been, but I did not flinch anymore. That was when the knock came. Not harsh, just 2 sharp taps. I stood, opened the door. Maris. Her face was pale, eyes wide, not from fear but from sheer disbelief. You need to see this right now. She brushed past me and grabbed the remote from the coffee table, flipping on the tiny mounted television above the counter. A local news broadcast. There he was, Dorian, in a button-down shirt, not even wrinkled, like nothing had ever happened. His lawyer stood off to the side, nodding along as he spoke. I never wanted to hurt anyone, Dorian said into the microphone. My wife, she is struggling emotionally. It has been a hard time. I just want her to get the help she truly needs. Help? Maris looked at me, eyes blazing. I did not blink. I just watched. He smiled for the camera, and something inside me stopped shaking. I walked back to the table, opened my laptop, sat down. Maris tilted her head. What are you doing? I did not answer. I pulled up a blank document and I started typing a letter. Not to the police, not to a judge, but to someone who actually had power. Someone with reach, with platform. Someone who, once they saw what I had, could not unsee it. When I was done, I read it once, just once. Then I hit send, because that night I did not cry. I drafted a letter and sent it to someone who had far more reach than a local cop. By the time the streetlights had faded into early grey, I was still awake. The apartment was quiet except for the occasional hum of the refrigerator. My body had not asked for sleep, it had asked for truth, and I gave it that. Now I sat at the tiny kitchen counter, hunched over my laptop, the screen dimmed but alive. I sipped from a chipped mug of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. My hands did not shake, not from fear, not anymore. I was not hiding anymore. The email was open, addressed to Nadine Kessler, a journalist I had never spoken to but had been watching for weeks. Her face had come on my screen one sleepless night, reporting on a woman who exposed her husband, a state senator, and survived not just the scandal but the shame. Her story rewrote state law. That night I had bookmarked Nadine's name. Now I typed under it. Dear Nadine, I do not know if you will believe me, but I am going to give you every possible reason to. I attached everything. The copies of the money transfers Dorian had made in my name, the audio files I had recorded months ago back when my instincts still whispered, "You are not safe." The photos I took, the first bruise, the receipts, the text threads with his threats hidden between casual lines. I included a full timeline, the police statement, my name, and then I wrote one last sentence and reread it twice before sending. If I disappear, this is my voice. Publish it anyway. I hit send. I closed the laptop and leaned back in the chair, staring out the small kitchen window. The sky was turning from steel to pale peach. Somewhere down the block, someone was dragging trash bins to the curb. Life outside had not changed, but something in me absolutely had. I had not cried last night, and I was not going to now. But my breath came deeper, slower, like I had finally exhaled something I had held for far too long. I stood and walked to the bathroom, turned on the light, faced the mirror. The bruise under my left eye had started to yellow. It looked like old fruit left too long on the counter, and for a moment I reached up and brushed it gently with my fingertip. "You are not my shame anymore," I whispered softly. It did not sound powerful, but it sounded honest. My phone buzzed on the counter, An email notification. I rushed over and opened it. From Nadine Kessler. Subject: Restore submission. Body: This will not be buried. I will call you in an hour. That was when I let myself smile. Just a small one. I put the coffee down and rinsed my face in cold water, then returned to the laptop to wait. I did not pace. I did not second guess. I just sat there, heart steady. 45 minutes later, the Zoom link arrived. I clicked. Her face appeared. Sharp eyes, no makeup. She looked like she had not slept, but she also looked like someone who did not waste time. "Iris," she said, "thank you for trusting me with this." "I was not sure I should," I replied honestly. "Good. You should not trust easily," she said firmly. "But you trusted smart." She verified everything. Every document, every timestamp, every voice file. She did not rush me, did not coddle me. She just listened and cross-checked. It felt less like being interviewed and more like passing a relay baton to someone already ready to sprint. But nothing prepared me for what she said next. "You are not the only one." I blinked. "What? What do you mean?" "There is another woman. Different state, same man, different name, but the exact same pattern. I will connect you two if you want." My stomach dropped. Dorian. He had done this before. Another woman had once sat where I sat, told the same story to a wall of silence. And now we were both surfacing, gasping, maybe finally being heard. I nodded slowly. "Yes, please. I need to." We ended the call, and she promised to publish by Monday. I closed my laptop. My hand hovered for a second before letting the screen drop shut with a soft click. Just as I was about to stand, the burner phone I kept for emergencies buzzed beside me. A text lit up the screen from an unknown number. "You have made a mistake. Fix it or I will." I stared at the message. Did not move. Did not flinch. Then I said aloud to no one, "No, I just finally corrected one thing." I left the phone on the counter. I was not going to live in fear of it, because for the first time in a very long time, my voice was not alone. And by Sunday, I was not hiding. I was preparing, and I was not the only one building a storm. I zipped up my jacket against the late morning chill and walked through the side door of the old community center off Mason Street. It still smelled like chalk dust and burnt coffee from the AA meetings that used the space at night. I passed a wall lined with flyers, self-defense workshops, grief circles, immigration support groups, and found the room Nadine had reserved for us. The folding chairs groaned as I sat down. Across the chipped laminate table, two women looked up. Corinne and Celine, both older than me by a few years, both with faces that wore more than makeup. We greeted one another not like survivors, but like strategists. That was Nadine's doing. Nadine had called us individually on Friday. She had said, "You are not the only one. There are more of you, and it is finally time you met." Corinne's voice broke the quiet first. "We are not here just to swap war stories, right?" "No," I said. "We are here to change the entire pattern." She nodded. Her hands were firm on a thick folder, the corners worn. "Financial manipulation," she said simply. "He forged my signature, rerouted business accounts under his name, left me with the IRS breathing heavily down my neck." Celine added, "He isolated me. No credit in my name at all. When I pressed charges, they said I did not seem scared enough the first time. Second time, the DA dropped it. In the interest of preserving family stability, they said." I leaned forward. "What we have now, it is not just stories. It is receipts." Celine slid over a thumb drive. Corinne unfolded printouts and spreadsheets. I opened my laptop and pulled up the shared drive Nadine had set up. Secure, encrypted, and under a decoy name. We each uploaded our documentation, bank statements, hospital records, texts, photos, police dismissals. Every time the system looked away, we saved the moment. That afternoon, we launched something small but solid. A private website. Just a single landing page with 3 names, 3 testimonies, and 1 statement. We are not asking for justice. We are showing you the proof you refuse to see. My final upload was an audio clip. Dorian's voice, low and mocking. Even if you scream, no one is listening to you. I typed a caption beneath the audio file. We heard each other. That was it. No hashtags, no drama, just reality. Around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I drove back to my apartment. The wind had picked up a little, as if the air itself knew something was shifting. I stopped by the corner market, picked up some pasta and 2 frozen lemon bars. I had never liked them much, but they were my mom's favorite. Maybe I just needed to remember someone once used to care. Or maybe I was preparing for the kind of closure you never find in courtrooms. Back home, I plugged in my phone and sat at the kitchen table. I pulled up the news site Nadine worked with. A draft headline sat in her final review folder. The hands behind the silence. 3 women, 1 man, and the system that let him roam. The words stared back at me like something sacred and dangerous all at once. I pressed a palm flat against the tabletop to ground myself. My other hand reached up, almost without thinking, to the fading bruise under my right eye. Still there, faint and yellowed now, but a memory all the same. I whispered, "You are not the shame anymore." Then I made the mistake of checking Instagram. Dorian had posted a photo from our wedding day. I was in lace. He was in navy. The caption read, "No one knew her like I did. I did not flinch. I did not even blink." He was baiting me, playing to his audience, family, friends, former co-workers, churchwomen who still thought he was charming. He wanted a reaction. Instead, I gave him silence. And something better. I pulled up my own photos. Found the one I had kept locked away in a cloud folder for years. A close-up shot of my hospital wristband, the date clearly visible. It was from the night I was admitted after a fall down the stairs, 1 year before our wedding. Dorian had driven me there himself and told the nurse I was clumsy. I posted the photo without a caption. Just the truth. Plain, ugly, undeniable. And then I logged out. The wind rattled the window panes. Around 7:30 I made dinner, barely tasting it, and stood by the counter, staring into the steam rising off the pot. I did not feel brave. I did not feel angry either. What I felt was something steadier, something heavier, like the weight of finally standing up straight after years of hunching low just to survive. Before heading to bed, I walked through the apartment and double-checked carefully every lock. I knew the article was scheduled to go live Monday morning. I knew we had less than 24 hours before it was no longer just whispers between survivors. It would be public, and people would have to choose where they stood. Just before midnight, I lit a candle I had not touched since moving in. Dr. Lowry once told me that rituals matter deeply when you are reclaiming space. So I sat quietly in the living room, the candle flickering in the corner, and whispered, not to God, but to myself, "Whatever comes, I am ready." The article went live at 7:02 a.m. I did not have to scroll far. Nadine's piece was pinned at the top of every single news page I opened. By 9 o'clock a.m., my phone buzzed with a call from Eldon Price, Dorian's attorney. And by 9:15, another alert came through, this time from his firm. They were not vague about it either. Termination review initiated. Confidentiality lifted. We will be issuing a public statement within the hour. That sentence sat there on my screen as I stood barefoot in the kitchen, a lukewarm mug of tea untouched beside the sink. For the first time in a very long time, I did not feel like I was reacting. I was simply breathing. I did not forward the email. I did not rush to post it online. I just exhaled. The quietest sound I had made all morning, but it carried the most weight. I went about my day as normal as I could. I folded laundry, fed the cat, wiped the edge of the windowsill with my sleeve where dust had settled. Every now and then I checked my phone, not obsessively, but enough to watch the digital current swell. The comments were flooding in beneath the article, some praising Nadine's reporting, some sharing their own truths. But it was the private messages that stopped me cold. One was from a name I did not recognize, a woman named June Rowley. She wrote, "I read the article. I was one of his patients. Thank you so much for not staying quiet." I sat down at the table, not because I felt weak, but because my knees trembled in a different way. Not fear, something more like release. By noon, another number appeared on my screen, a different law office. I hesitated but answered. "Lorraine Mercer." The voice on the line was calm, measured, a woman's. "My name is Lorraine Mercer. I am with the Fulton County DA's office. I wanted to let you know we are reopening your case." I did not reply immediately. My mind blanked, like it did not even know how to compute that sentence. Lorraine continued gently. "I am sorry it took this long. There were procedural barriers, but now that certain pieces have surfaced publicly, particularly the audio, those barriers no longer apply." I could have said 1,000 things. I could have asked why it had to take an article, a social storm, a wave of strangers, but I did not. Instead, I just said, "Thank you for finally catching up." And she understood exactly what I meant. We scheduled a formal statement for Thursday. After I hung up, I found myself walking into the bedroom. The closet door stood slightly open. I pulled it wide and stepped inside like I had months ago, back when my only form of truth was a whisper between clothes racks and silence. I remembered it clearly. The phone clutched against my chest, my voice barely audible. "I am recording this just in case," I had said that day. That audio was now embedded at the end of Nadine's article. And now, according to Lorraine, it was also logged into the official courthouse file. From my pocket, my phone buzzed again. I walked back to the kitchen and unlocked it, half expecting another message of support. But it was not that. It was Dorian. He had just uploaded a video. No edits, no background music, just his face, messy hair, eyes red, voice shaking. "They are painting me like a monster," Dorian said. "She is making it sound like I am some kind of abuser. I loved her, I truly still do. But this is cruel. She is not the woman you think she is. She is vengeful, bitter, and dangerous." I watched in silence. Not because I was shocked, but because I could finally see through the performance. I used to mistake that voice, the fragility, the cracks, for regret. But now it just felt like someone desperately trying to pull a mask back on, even after it had already shattered against the floor. Beneath his post, the comments were a mix at first, but then one took off. A woman replied, "She did not break the silence. She survived it. That is louder." It was shared over 30,000 times before the hour was up. I closed the video, set my phone down again. It was only mid-afternoon when the next notification arrived, a legal one this time. Protective order expanded. Defendant is required to surrender all registered firearms by 10 tonight. I reread it once, then again slowly. The timestamp matched the motion. He had been served. I leaned back in my chair, watching a thin beam of light stretch across the floor from the window. My tea was cold. My cat was curled up in the same patch of sun he always claimed. And for the very first time since all of this began, the air around me felt still. I said it quietly out loud, more to the walls than to anyone in particular. "We are not done, but now we are not invisible either." There was no anger in my voice, just truth. And truth, when it finally has space to exist, does not need to scream. That night I lit a candle not for grief, but for something I had forgotten I deserved. Peace. A week later, as the sun dropped behind the city skyline, I stood outside the courthouse again. Same steps, same wide doors, but my knees did not shake this time. In my hands I held a sealed manila folder, the last of the paperwork. It was not heavy in weight, but it was heavy in meaning. It might as well have been made of stone. My request to finalize the divorce, to let the protective order stand until the judge handed down a sentence. But that was not the reason I came tonight. I was not here to file papers. I was waiting. A breeze moved my coat as I watched cars ease past on the road. Evening traffic. Horns low, radios buzzing, the occasional burst of laughter from a sidewalk cafe across the street. The courthouse loomed behind me, quiet now, its last clerk locking up the side entrance. Then headlights turned into the lot. The car rolled to a stop and Maris stepped out first. She did not wave. She just looked at me like I was already understood. Corinne followed, coat sleeves pushed up, her expression calm but tired. Behind her, Celine. She carried nothing but a small candle in her hand. It was unlit. We did not need words. We had used so many already. In months of late-night calls, hushed confessions, and courtroom benches, they stood beside me like pillars. "I came here alone once," I murmured. "I leave with sisters now." Maris squeezed my arm gently. Corinne gave a half smile. Celine simply nodded, steady and quiet. The last of the sunlight kissed the horizon in orange and lavender. We stood there, 4 women, facing a building that once echoed only with silence for hours. I turned, folder still in hand, and we walked in together. Inside, the corridor was dim. Fluorescent lights flickered faintly above. The clerk at the front desk did not even look up. I approached, handed over the envelope. He asked, "Final filing, is that correct?" I nodded. "Yes, it is." He stamped the form. No cameras, no crowd, no lawyers, no Dorian. Just the sound of paper sliding into a metal tray. "Anything else?" he asked. "No, that is all," I said firmly. The walk back outside was quiet. When I pushed open the glass doors, the air felt fresher, cooler on my skin, sharper in my lungs. I stood there a moment longer, breathing. Across the street, a couple walked by, arm in arm, mid-conversation. A little boy chased a pigeon on the courthouse lawn. Life kept moving. Even when yours felt paused, it never really stopped. Corinne reached into her coat and pulled out a thermos. "Tea," she offered. "Chamomile, still warm." I accepted a sip. Still warm. Familiar. "I remember the first time I called you," Celine said. "You sounded so small. Not weak, just hidden away." "I was," I replied softly. Hiding felt safer. There was a pause. Then Maris added, "But you still picked up the phone. You still answered." That moment settled deep, because that was it, was it not? I did not scream. I did not break down in public. I did not throw anything or fight him in front of witnesses. I just picked up the phone, whispered, documented, waited, and then moved. I blinked back, and suddenly it was all there. The first bruise I covered with makeup. My mother's eyes, how they dropped to the floor instead of meeting mine. Dorian's voice after the first apology. "You made me do that." The sound of a lock clicking and no one ever coming back. And finally, me, alone in the closet, one hand trembling, whispering into my phone, "My name is Iris. I am scared, but I am done pretending I am not." That clip made it into the article and into the court file, not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. I exhaled slowly and looked up at the courthouse windows. I imagined someone behind the glass reading my file now. Maybe a young lawyer, maybe a judge, maybe just another clerk. And maybe they would pause, not out of pity, but because they heard a woman who did not yell, did not perform, but survived. I turned to the others. "I will walk home." "You sure?" Maris asked. I nodded. "I need the air, just for myself." They did not argue. They just hugged me, one after the other. No fanfare, no final speech. As they pulled away, Celine pressed the unlit candle into my hand. "For your window," she said softly, "in case someone is still out there, waiting to believe it gets better." I walked the rest of the way, with the candle tucked safely in my coat pocket. The streets glowed amber under the street lamps. My steps felt lighter. Not entirely free, maybe, but no longer chained. When I reached my apartment, I unlocked the door, slipped off my shoes, and moved through the rooms without turning on every light like I used to. The place was not big, but it was mine, and it was quiet. Not the kind of quiet that hides bruises, the kind that lets you exhale. I stood by the window, the same one I had stared out of on the night he did not come home, and the nights I had wished he never would. I lit the candle. Its small flame flickered gently against the glass, casting just enough light to be noticed from the street. And then I whispered, not to the room, not to him, but maybe to someone like I once was. There are bruises no one sees. There are silences that cut deeper than fists. But there is also something else, the kind of healing that does not ask permission. I did not move for a long while, just stood watching the candle burn. And in its light, I did not see what I had lost. I saw what I had finally chosen, myself. Because survival is not just leaving. It is daring to stay alive in your own skin, to take up space you were once told you did not deserve. If you have ever carried a silence like mine, I hope you know you are not alone. Share your thoughts, your story, your experience beneath this video. I am here to listen, and maybe someone else who needs to read your words will find strength in them too. If this story touched you, remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell if you want to hear more stories that remind us we are never as alone as we think. Drop the words, "I choose freedom," in the comments to stand together. For survival, for rebirth, for loving ourselves again. Thank you for spending this time with me. I will see you in the next video. Until then, take care of yourself. And remember, your voice matters.